This is an NBC 10 Decision 2024 update.
And we welcome you inside Studio B on this big election night where we are streaming this election 2024 update on our Facebook page, our YouTube page, turner10.com, and the app. I'm Dan Janik.
And I'm Emily Voles. Yeah, this update streaming, as Dan just mentioned, on various platforms. And we want to bring you this because this is just into the newsroom. So polls in Rhode Island and Massachusetts, they just closed at 8 o'clock, and we have some results already.
Yeah, let's get right to U.S. Senator Democrat Senator Sheldon Whitehouse. He has been the winner here with just 24 or 2% reporting right now. He is beating Republican Patricia Morgan, a Republican, former state rep, former teacher. Kind of no surprise in this race. I don't think you're going to see any big surprises with the big names that you know.
No, that's right. Out of Massachusetts, U.S. Senator Elizabeth Warren seeking her third term. She defeats her Republican challenger, John Deaton. The Associated Press has called this. We also want to mention that the Associated Press has already called Massachusetts for Vice President Harris.
Yeah, the Elizabeth Warren race is interesting because her opponent is actually a former Rhode Islander who then moved to Swansea, rented a house there to run against her, but obviously he had a big uphill battle, and no surprise that did not go well. We have reporters stationed all across the area, and we're going to begin at the Graduate Hotel. That's where the Democrats are.
NBC 10 political reporter Brian Crandall joins us as those results come in with the Democrats watching. Brian.
Yeah, hey, this is Brian Crandall at the Democratic Party election night event at the Graduate Hotel in downtown Providence, what used to be the Biltmore. It's filled in just the last 10 to 15 minutes as the polls have now closed in Rhode Island after 8 o'clock. The Associated Press has already called the Senate race for Sheldon Whitehouse over Republican Patricia Morgan. No real surprise there. We're waiting for the speaking program to begin here. We did see Sheldon Whitehouse in the room here about an hour ago when nobody else was here. He, of course, was optimistic about his own race. Also, he said feeling good about Kamala Harris's chances in the election against Donald Trump. And really, that's what more of the people here are keeping an eye on tonight. It would seem that the local races, or at least the statewide and congressional races here, are pretty sewn up for Democrats. Gabe Amo has a re-election bid. He won a special election last year, so seeking his first full term. He's expected to win. So is Seth Magaziner, as the speaking program is about to begin behind us. Also in the room are candidates who are not on the ballot this year. Statewide, Governor Dan McKee is here. He was in one corner of the room, and also Attorney General Peter Neronha in the other corner of the room. That may be some of the higher intrigue tonight, as the two kind of duked it out publicly last week over the ILO investigation led by Neronha, finding that there was no criminal charges against Dan McKee in the issuance of that contract, but the Attorney General's report based on state police findings was that the governor influenced and steered that contract to a favored vendor, which McKee pushed back on and claimed that Neronha has a political agenda because he supports one of McKee's opponents. So some intrigue here in the room among Democrats, but I'm sure tonight they're focused on both the congressional races locally and the presidential race and the House and Senate up for grabs. We'll be back with you here from Democratic Party headquarters tonight. For now, I'm Brian Crandall, NBC 10 News, live in Providence.
Brian, thanks. Yeah, so that Senate race for Sheldon Whitehouse has been called. We're still getting the numbers in. Nothing's been called yet. But so far in Rhode Island's first congressional district, Gabe Amo is in the lead with 62% of the vote, but just 3% reporting. So we will continue to monitor this one. He currently has a significant lead over his challenger, Alan Waters.
That's right. Let's go to Rhode Island's second congressional district, where Democrat incumbent Seth Magaziner also has a decent lead. Again, only 11% reporting, obviously not as big a lead as Gabe Amo had, but of course that will change as the night goes on. But those are the numbers as we see it, as we come on our online platforms here. Kind of an interesting look inside the Democratic room when Brian was talking about it. You saw the House Speaker there, you saw Peter Neronha on the right.
Yeah.
I think McKee will be there. So the Democrats are a close group, but there are also some in-groups within them, and it makes it for interesting watching.
Yeah, but we heard cheering there. Obviously, they have some early reasons to celebrate. I'm curious to see what the vibes are like for the Republican side. They are currently at the Event Factory in Warwick.
Yeah, and that's where NBC 10's Gabrielle Cracciolo is standing by. Gabrielle, what's the mood where you are?
Yeah, well, I'm here with Joe Powers, the chairman of the Rhode Island Republican Party. This is the Event Factory in Warwick, where they're hosting their election night watch party. Thanks for joining us. Now, when we look at Rhode Island's congressional races, the Republicans were running as the challengers in these races, and the early results show the Democrats ahead. What is the feeling like amongst Republicans here tonight?
Well, I'll tell you what, we feel really good about an overall showing from all of our candidates across the state, especially our statewide. We've got a really good, solid crew of people who are running, and we feel really good about a bunch of the seats. As far as the congressional seats is, we had some amazing candidates actually stepped up and they ran a very hard race. They done the best work that I've seen from most people in most years, and we're really going to start gaining a little bit more and more. The idea is exposure. To try and get more people out there to understand who these candidates are. I think it's going to draw more people out to want to come over to the Republican side.
And as you look around the room here, you see there's a lot of focus on the presidential race. There's a lot of Trump signs. There's a cardboard cutout. What is the thought process as people in the room kind of looking at this presidential race? We don't even know if we'll have results in this evening.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, with Trump being as polarizing as he is and the entire race for the presidential being as polarizing as it is, more people are going to focus on that. I couldn't get cardboard cutouts for everybody that's running for the statewide, so I got the cutouts that I could. Now, obviously, we are going to be more focused on what's going to happen here in Rhode Island, because that's going to be the direct effect of what we're going to have the ability to do moving forward. But obviously, we're going to hang out until we see what happens with the presidential as well. And from what I'm seeing so far, some of the numbers coming in with our candidates statewide actually look pretty good.
Would you say cautiously optimistic when it comes to that presidential race?
Yeah, I'm not a pollster guy. I don't go by polls. I go by feeling. I go by understanding of where everybody's at and see the amount of work that they're putting in. I feel really good about the people that we put forward. Back in 22, we had a very large class of candidates, over 70 of them. This time it was a more concentrated version of what we had, and we put a little bit more focus on particular spots, particular areas, and particular races. And those candidates right there are actually, they're going to be here tonight, and actually they're doing really well right now, and some of the results coming in.
We'll keep an eye on all of that. Joe Powers with the Rhode Island Republican Party. Thanks for joining us, and we'll keep checking back in with you as the night goes on. For now, we're live in Warwick. Gabrielle Caracciolo, NBC 10 News.
Gabrielle, thank you. He talks about exposure going up against the Democratic power fundraisers. It's very, very difficult. But here is a Republican who's starting to get a lot of name recognition. Of course, Cranston Mayor Ken Hopkins. He faced against Robert Ferry right now. Only 4% reporting, but as you can see, he has a lead at this hour.
All right, let's check in with Warwick's mayoral race for the city's first four-year mayoral term. Mayor Frank Picozzi facing off against Leanne Hazelwood. He appears to be up by a pretty significant margin, also facing off against Patrick Maloney. Again, only 3% reporting. So these are all races we will continue to monitor throughout the evening as more and more returns come in.
Yeah, let's go to Pawtucket now. Mayor Don Grebian, obviously seeking an 8th term. And we don't have all the numbers in on this right now, but he's facing off against kind of a political newcomer and kind of a not big name recognition here. So again, you'll see these numbers come in as we speak. A lot of the poll numbers are starting to get processed.
As we mentioned a little while ago, the Associated Press has called Elizabeth Warren as the winner in the Massachusetts Senate race against her challenger, John Deaton, a local from Swansea. He was originally living in Barrington and then moved to the Swansea area to campaign against Elizabeth Warren. We are currently in Boston at her campaign party right now.
And that's where all the Democrats will certainly come out in Boston. NBC 10's Leanna Folk is live at her watch party in South Boston. Leanna?
Yeah, Dan, Emily, we're live here at the SOA Power Station in South Boston for Senator Elizabeth Warren's election watch party. And I mean, there were roars of excitement. You can hear some of it behind me right now as that announcement came over that Senator Warren was going to be returning to Capitol Hill to continue representing the Commonwealth of Massachusetts in the U.S. Senate, defeating her challenger Republican, John Deaton. Deaton, a Swansea attorney who tried to position himself as a new voice for the GOP here in Massachusetts, but that proving unsuccessful tonight as Warren has been declared the projected winner of that seat. Now, Warren, this is pretty much solidifying her as a powerhouse for progressive policy here. Her campaign mainly focused on issues like health care, the economy, climate change. So with this win, it really solidifies for Massachusetts voters what their values are and who they want representing them ultimately on the Capitol. Now, there are speeches underway right now in preparation for the person of honor here, Senator Warren. And when that speech comes, we hope you'll stay with us here on NBC 10 for the live updates. Live in Boston tonight, Leanna Falk, NBC 10 News.
All right, a big celebration there. Of course, you see powerhouse names like Elizabeth Warren, Senator Whitehouse. They're going to pull it in. The Democrats have a well-oiled fundraising machine here. And what's interesting is that Hopkins and Patricia Morgan are not going to be at the location in Warwick where Gabrielle is. And that kind of is almost symbolic in a way that the Republican Party in this state is kind of all over the place.
Yeah, a little bit fractioned off right now. But we also have a couple other issues that we want to talk about. So the ballot questions, these have been big ones. So let's go through some of the Rhode Island questions right now. This is with 9% reporting. Should a constitutional convention be held? Right now, most people are voting no on that. 65% are saying no constitutional convention. The rest are about money. Question 2 is about higher education facilities. This is a lot of funding, $160 million. Right now, a little more than half approve. Again, only 9% reporting, though. Next one, $120 million to help increase the amount of housing in Rhode Island. A little bit more support for this because there's such a housing deficit and the costs are so high right now. This is a $120 million bond.
That's right. The next one is the green economy bonds. They're asking for $53 million. This obviously, with 9% reporting, is leading at 65 over 35%. A lot of these bond questions get approved, and the question is, not a lot of people realize where the money's coming from. Now, the governor has said on our air yesterday that he has enough money to cover these bonds. So that brings us to number 5, cultural arts, obviously another big important part of our community. A grant program worth $10 million, and the 9% in right now has that ahead. Let's go to Massachusetts.
All right, so first up, the first ballot question is the state auditor will have authority to audit the legislature. This is just 1% reporting right now, but we are seeing 70% enthusiasm, a yes on that, the ability to audit the legislature.
Right. This is the question that got a lot of attention, got a lot of a promotion, and that is number 2, the elimination of the MCAS as a high school graduation requirement. This one is going to be right down to the wire. It's 1% and still a very, very close race, but this is one of many ballot questions in Massachusetts getting a lot of attention. Yeah,
people have been campaigning hard to eliminate the MCAS as a requirement, but right now you're seeing it's still fairly close. Next up is the unionization for transport network drivers. So this is basically Uber and Lyft. Should they be allowed to unionize? Right now, most people, 57%, are saying yes to that.
Limited legalization and regulation of certain natural psychedelic substances. This is the question about, you'll hear a lot about, they say the psychedelic mushrooms.
Magic mushrooms.
Magic mushrooms, or Massachusetts is something you've heard right now. This is an interesting one and got a lot of play, and they're just 1% reporting. They obviously have a decent lead, but nothing overwhelming.
Yeah, and then finally, this one I've also seen a lot of signs out for. A lot of the restaurants in Massachusetts have been very vocal on social media. They are saying, no, do not vote for this. So this would increase the minimum wage for tipped workers, but they would also have to pool their tips. Restaurants very concerned about how this could change their structure and their ability to stay upright right now when food cost margins are so tight. Right now, 62% are saying no for changing the way that tipped workers are currently paid in Massachusetts.
Yeah, a lot of restaurants, as we're seeing both here and in southeastern Massachusetts, are closing, right, because of the number of costs, so they don't want to add that to it. But tip workers say, hey, I deserve to get paid a little bit more for all the work we do. Yeah. So that is our Decision NBC 10 Decision 2024 update right now. We're going to be back in less than an hour. Emily and I will be back here online. Gina Patrice will be back on air. We'll have all the results, and of course, you